Today, white man holding a black child hurts people, according to a New York City councilwoman. Much more to come. Welcome to Black Spring. Welcome to Black Spring on your Tuesday. Hope everyone is doing well. I do apologize for the tardiness this morning, but of course I am not short by any means on headlines and what's important and why it's important to you. So I'd like to thank everyone for all your support, and thank you for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Now, also, if you will just take a moment with me, and we will be thanking our loyal patrons for all that they do. And thank you very much to you, the loyal subscribers. Thank you so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And as always, if you are looking for content creators of vast knowledge and depth and culture, and just there's a variety of topics, then look no further than our patrons, Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, Sandy K, The Definition of Anarchy, The Angel Munez Variety Show, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, Gary L. Youngkees Jr., and Derek C. Williams. If I missed anyone, I will not make that mistake again. But also a very special shout out to Cold War Jesus. Thank you so much for all that you do and all of your support. And thank you to the loyal subscribers. Thank you so much. And also, if you guys will keep in mind that the community tab will be updated very soon with more events and some unique opportunities that you will find only here on Black Spring with Autumn. And also thanks once again to everyone who participated in the polls, the last two polls. And I look forward to bringing you more on the development, on the research and the engagement for those polls. So thank you guys so much for participating in that. So we'll continue. There's lots of news to get to this morning, as usual. And what we're going to start with is something that for some time that I've heard that there may be a bit of a bias or an attack, or we've got so much lunacy that's happening in the streets of America right now. Just about every construct, every value is being deconstructed or picked apart. So we're going to start with BLM. Some of these topics seem to be on loop on Black Spring with Autumn, but it certainly is the news, and some of it you'll only see here on Black Spring with Autumn. You will not see it from the mainstream media. So we're going to start off. We'll start off with the first one. Now, this particular clip is going to come from a BLM set of agitators, revolutionists, whatever you want to call them, the Marxist, deciding that they're going to take on a New York City church. Now, I want to say this to America. overall, no matter what your background is, if this isn't an infringement upon people's rights, then I don't know what is. It's like we're not going to be able to coexist like this. I'm not gonna, it's just not possible. So once again, I want to thank everyone for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Thank you so much for joining me on this segment. I'll be taking you to that clip.
Good morning.
Continue to take each other.
Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Now, there you can see that's happening in New York City. Now, mind you, the hypocrisy here, the hypocrisy here, and also this is a dangerous precipice that we're on right now. Now, these people are peaceably going into their church with their children, and they are being tortured with bullhorns. I mean, at any moment, they might start grabbing the kids, saying, "Oh, I'm going to call CPS. You know, you're taking your kids into this church." You know, this is Black Lives Matter. They're trying to go into the churches now. I really don't know. But no one can peaceably go to church, but you're allowed to go out into the streets and tyrannize and bully and antagonize, and who knows what they'll do. How much longer is it going to take? What are they waiting for? How many more people have to die with what's going on in this country right now? I mean, we seem to be a nation of death right about now. I mean, I'm just asking if anybody else has any insight on it, but even death has not stopped. Death has not triggered law and order to be restored. Now, most people would like to think that if you can't go anywhere, you can go to a church. But in this case, these people can't even go to church with their kids. And they had to stop BLM in the previous clip from entering the church. Honestly, they should have been asked to leave. You're allowed to go protest, but you can't go and worship. Does this sound? I mean, it appears to be. This is beyond topsy-turvy Tuesday, as I like to refer to it as. This is. I think we're dealing with something. a lot of times people say, oh, well, this situation in my life really tested my faith. Well, if people that have never had any faith, well, what do you believe right now? What do you believe in right now? That your church, your house of worship can be stormed, legally be stormed, and the media can promote this kind of disruption and this kind of infringement upon people's rights. This is bound to get violent. I do believe that some other type of war is going to kick off if they don't restore the order soon. And at this point, I don't care who it is. I don't care who it is. I don't care what they appear to look like in the media. And that's one thing I'm saying. At some point, it can't just be one or two people speaking out about what's going on. Not just speaking out. There's too much. We've had too much talk. We've had way too much talk. And why? And if all the information is out there and it's reaching the public about BLM, why aren't they taking them down? They are at large right now. They are at large. And the thing about it, people, they live in a bubble, or they live in an atypical or I don't know. They think it can't have an invincible kind of society in their minds. But what happens when it's your town or when it's your church? What happens? Or what happens when it's your house? You think it can't happen to you? A lot of people didn't think what they're seeing now couldn't happen to their kids. Nobody thought it. Nobody. And I'm going to tell you, right now we've got a trend or coalition almost of, good morning, Spirit of Liberty. Thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate everybody so much for coming by or coming in, or if you're driving by, not sure if you're coming in. I appreciate if you guys could hit that like button, the unlike button, the share button, if you dare throw any caution to the wind. But it would be very helpful to the Channelytics, and you guys are very much appreciated here on Black Spring with Autumn. Shout out to Spirit of Liberty. Thank you so much for coming in. Says, please tell me you saw the video of the NFAC Stone marching around with guns and threatening people based on race. I saw something of that particular clip. Hang on just a second here. Sorry about the ambient noise. But yes, I did see that. I'm saying we're in a tough spot right now. And I think I think we've been way too tolerant, and we've been way too docile. We've been way too dormant. And this is where I'm going to paraphrase something even that Trump said. He says that these people, that this force, or these, I call them technocrats, everything, but they think we're weak. Silence is, to me, silence would be a weakness. Being indifferent is a weakness. And, what are you going to do? See, this is the thing about the founding of this nation. You got your Bill of Rights, but then why in the entire heck why do we need to pass more? Why does there need to be a swath of executive orders and more laws and more acts on things that are already in place? Just deal with what's on the books and stop wasting money creating these legislators. Keep wasting money creating these bills, these acts, and what are our people are being tyrannized. We've got terrorism right here in the streets right now. I'm not exempt from it. Nobody's exempt from it. It could be your church next. It could be your kids next. Your vehicle could be assaulted. So I'm just thinking, I find there's a lot of disingenuous things going on. Of course, politics, we can all agree that politics are nasty. But does it look like we're living in a are we in a nice gregarious environment right now? Are we dealing with the civil environment? I've got a litany of stories right now, and many of them deal with some type of violence. And BLM is everywhere. And what's being done? I mean, what's the mayor of Atlanta doing? Now we'll go into that story just a little bit if you're not familiar with that one. And right about now, there's at least four women that come to mind. They're not doing their jobs. To me, they're accomplices. They're accomplices to what's going on. Shout out to everybody in the stream. Shout out to the Spirit of Liberty 1775, the rapper 10,000. Thank you guys so much for coming in. I do apologize. I am in and out of the screen and I am wearing my my trusty glasses right now, but that's the nature of the beast. I'll read some of your comments. Thank you guys so much for coming in on this segment of Black Spring. The rapper says that the BLM is a hateful group who is now attacking Christians in New York. That's the point that I wanted to get into, but we'll hold on. I'll hold on to that one. And Spirit of Liberty says, I'd imagine that if this does not stop in the near future, we will see a fierce ramp up of racially motivated attacks from both sides. It's so sad watching the mainstream media and the Democrats. Well, I think they've been allowed to do what they're doing, and I think they've been doing it. It's been in the making. It's been in the making for years now. I've got more, of course, much more coverage, of course, and then we'll talk about some other things. We're seeing all these racially motivated, we're seeing white people trying to teach other people about Black people as if we're some type of oddity or pet. I'm telling you right now, personally, it's very offensive. It's very offensive for any person or any liberal. I don't care what the background is. You don't speak for me. And you don't tell me who I am. You don't tell me anything about me. Shout out to Spirit of Liberty. Thank you guys so much for coming in. We're going to get into some of these. We're also going to get into behind the campaigns. And what I do mean, we're going to talk about language. I've talked about that before. We've talked about the political parties being the enemy of the people. Well, guess what? The language that they speak is the enemy of the people as well. It's full of evasive idioms. It's full of folly. It's useless. But they never say directly. They never give you anything straight. It's totally disrespectful. So I'm going to keep going here. The left is fearing that American people will revolt further against them with the lockdowns, nationwide mask mandate, because it would be counterproductive and cause rebellion. Thank you so much, rapper 10,000. What I'm going to do is we're going to go right now to, here's another one of these. Here's another situation where a white liberal is telling a white man, that he can't hold a black baby. He's not allowed to hold a black baby in his lap. That's actually a friend. His friend's nephew is sitting in his lap. So it's lunacy. It's lunacy. I mean, there's a book, Liberalism is a Disease. I think it's plausible. There's plenty of studies to back up the argument. There's stats on it. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. But see, there again, Rapper, you're getting into something that I've heard other people say, that eventually that Christians in America would be under attack. Well, I think they're coming out. They're coming out with guns blazing on that now. First, Sean King, because of course Sean King is also a sponsor of BLM. You got Bill Ayers, sponsor of BLM. These people are coming from the fire from underground. The underground fire to destroy this country is alive and well. They're not hiding it. So with that said, I'll take you to a little bit of lunacy. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Hope you guys are doing well where you are. I don't mean to start off on a rant, but this cannot continue. Where we are, we cannot continue where we are. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I'm going to go ahead and take you to this particular story. Now, this comes from The Federalist. This is a New York City councilman attacked for holding a black child. Now, these are the same people that are making decisions about that. This is like an education forum that they're having. Can you imagine? This type of personality is on. These people are making decisions about your kids' schools. For those of you that are parents on the Black Spring channel, I don't know if you guys are doing public schools, if you're doing a charter school, if you're doing homeschool. I don't know, but I certainly think it's more than it would give me more than pause if I had a child in public school dealing with these types of these liberals and their sociological perspectives that they have no rights to make. And that'll bring me to another clip, because I think Mr. Wiley said it best on a video that I did yesterday. I've been black for quite a few years myself. There's nothing that a white liberal can tell me. Nothing. That also means you can't tell me what's best for me. All of that, soft limits. It's non-negotiable. So what you see before you is the article that I'm speaking of. This is the type of bureaucrat. These are the types of bureaucrats that are making decisions for America's children in the schools. This is where the indoctrination comes. This is where they're acting out. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this one. It's too bad they don't have this one on video, on recording, because that would have been, of course, even more incredible. But this is entitled, this comes from The Federalist. New York City councilwoman freaks out over white man holding black child. Quote, "It hurts people." Now, this was written on July 6, 2020 by Paulina Inc. All right. According to members of the New York City's Community Education Council, District 2, CECD2, behaved like the children they are meant to represent in last week's meeting, when discussions of a joke from a past meeting devolved into screaming, personal attacks, and slanders. During the council's June meeting, the group was tackling school integration. Councilmember Thomas Rockledge had brought his toddler daughter and his friend's nephew. The nephew spent much of the meeting climbing on and off of Rockledge's lap. This innocent image of a man holding a child was a target of scorn by his fellow council members. Rachel Broshi told Rockledge, quote, "It hurts people when they see a white man bouncing a brown baby on their lap and they don't know the context. That is harmful," quote, end quote. Broshi and several other council members argued that the image of a white man holding a black child was inherently racist. When Rockledge asked Broshi to explain why holding a friend's nephew was racist, merely due to their differing races, Broshi refused, yelling at Rockledge, quote, "Read a book, read Ibram Kendi, read, quote, White Fragility, read, quote, How to Talk to White People," end quote. Rockledge's question was never answered. How is it not racist to be offended by the sight of a child being held by someone of a differing race? It was not just the image of Rockledge holding his friend's nephew that caused outrage. During a discussion on ending screening in New York City schools and increasing integration processes, Rockledge argued that increasing integration efforts were important and had to begin as early as elementary school, contrary to the popular proposal of beginning in middle school. During his argument, he said, quote, my living room's integrated right now," end quote, in reference to the visit from his friend who happened to be black. Some of the council took the comment as a joke and accused Rockledge of purposefully belittling the problems of segregation and even minimizing slavery. And this if it wasn't so sad, it would be laughable. It's outrageous. Council member Emily Hellstrom monologued for several minutes, accusing Rockledge of racism and prescribing malicious intent. In the aftermath of the meeting, Rockledge faced an onslaught of allegations of racism on social media. Around 100 parents in District 2 signed a letter to Maud Maron, the president of the school board, complaining about Rockledge, who claims the letter slanders him with false allegations. Even Rockledge's defense of himself was portrayed in a harmful light. No amount of contextualizing saved him from the accusations of racism. Once accusation was charged, he was labeled, and it was never going away. Never mind that his comment was intended to push for increased scholastic integration. It was important that his laughter was not at the comment, but an involuntary and natural reaction to watching children play. They declared him guilty, and all exculpatory facts were ignored. A recurring theme throughout the meeting was that while it was fine to tell someone his actions were racist, the accuser had no responsibility to explain why. Instead, sizable focus was placed on the importance of, quote, doing the work, end quote, as council member Shino Tanikwawa said, as she called for increased anti-racism training for the council. She further expressed, there is no way around it. You have to read. If you're not willing to read, then you're not doing the work. This is work we all have to do. You can disagree with people, but this is not an ideological difference. This is how Black and Indigenous people of color see the world. And it's not for you and me to deny that reality. We have to get on board, end quote. This meeting forebodes a dark time for New York public schools. The members of this council could not hold a meeting without devolving into screaming matches and personal attacks. Further, members of council successfully wielded accusations of racism as a tool to silence political opponents. It's a very convenient argument when you can tell anyone who disagrees with you that he needs to, quote, do the work, end quote, and you have no obligation to discuss in good faith. Shout out to everybody in the stream. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Thank you so much for coming in. How are you doing? The rapper 10,000. But do you see, I mean, there's so many offenses there. If you just take the race factor out of what was going on there, there's a swath of offenses there. I mean, what group of people, where did they get their information from? I mean, do we just have people that are endowed or that are just anointed somehow that are walking around that can communicate how every single Black person feels in America about white people? Is that how it works? I have never seen a person have a problem. I've never seen a Black person reject a white person from holding a child. I've never seen that. And that's not to say that it doesn't exist, but to me, I mean, can you not just size that up to a person being hateful or being angry? It couldn't be about race. Because the child has no capacity or perception to determine who's holding them. So who has the problem? Who needs to deal with their racism? I'm sorry, but you can't, being Black is not living in a vacuum. It's not something you can zip up a suit. It's not something you step into, or you can put on a wetsuit or put on a plastic suit and say, hey, I've got the authority to be Black for a day. So that means I get to speak like maybe this person over here might have heard one time, or this rumor, or you don't get to do that. You don't get to do that. You have no authority to do that. You don't speak for an entire race of people. But this is happening because there's decades. You want to talk about something systemic? Why don't they look at the systemic demoralization and the destabilization of Black people at the hands of liberals? You've got all these NAACPs, ACLUs. You've got all of these organizations that are run by white liberals. Their infancy was white liberals. And they still, and then I'm even more interested in some of the abolitionists. Was that politically expedient? Or were they really trying to promote free people and solvent or financially solvent people during that time? I'm getting the side eye right about now. You have the same thing, like I said, I don't want to go into geopolitical stuff, but you can kind of see the same kinds of things that happen. You can see the same kinds of interactions, or you question people's intentions in Africa. You're really not trying to, like, if you're trying to do something that makes people, that's going to lead to a self-sustaining nation, or a financially stable, financially solvent nation, great. But if you're manipulating and trying to gain on a geopolitical level on that's going to ultimately increase your lot, then you're disingenuous. You're a spy. You're a destabilizer. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. How are you guys doing this morning? Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Shout out to the Rapper 10,000. Let's see. Chicago public schools are all but female teachers. Well, I'm not surprised, but it's funny that you say that, because when you see a lot of these attacks and a lot of these things that are going on right now, they're happening. These female-run cities, the strongest to me right now, and there could be others, strongest female representative I see that I can see would be Governor Noem from South Dakota. And hopefully, I mean, but see, there again, that swamp, I think the thing about it is, I'm not going to say that people are inhumane. I'm not going to demonize people for being politicians, but some people, I think some politicians, they go in well intentioned, but unfortunately at some point you might be approached with an offer. Like, how much can you be bought? And unfortunately, I think that's what happens. You might have someone that they go in with all of their, you get the whippersnappers that go in with all of their ideas, and then all of a sudden you got somebody with a nefarious offer with a ton of money. And then bam, now you're establishment. It didn't take long. Your whole platform goes down the tubes. So shout out to everybody in the stream. Thank you guys so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. Let me just check the chat here. I'm going to shout out everybody that's in the stream, or that if you were in the stream, thank you so much. Spirit of Liberty 1775. Thank you guys so much for coming in. Shout out to the Rapper 10,000. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. The Rapper says, here, I'll bring myself back in here. Sorry, guys. The Rapper says most female politicians and educators are taught from other people that their quote enemies are all white males. Well, you get a lot of that. Unfortunately, the indoctrination camps are everywhere. They're everywhere. You got a lot of congressmen and women that are activists, and they've been indoctrinated, and then they've indoctrinated other people too. So you've got a chain of indoctrination. So I'm going to keep going here. I'm going to move on to the next story. Hope everybody's doing well. Also, if you guys could make sure you're still subscribed. I'm under a plural of hearsay that YouTube has maybe done some type of a purge. So I do think that it's relevant to make sure that you are still subscribed, and maybe not even just to my channel, to anybody else's. That's something that I have to double back on, because I'm seeing that the like button or the subscriptions are not there. They've changed the layout on YouTube. So I appreciate you guys so much for coming in. The Rapper says the books she listens are dangerous books. White Fragility is a dangerous book, especially for kids. But okay, right. But somebody like-minded wrote that. Somebody like-minded wrote that. I mean, you got what? Not too long ago, Merriam-Webster is changing the definition of racism. You've got the whole education system has been compromised. And I don't know if there's any way. I really don't know. You talk about the Great Reset. We need a reset. All of our constructs are tainted. With these postmodernists, they say our values don't mean anything, but they want you to respect their values and their rights, but they don't want to respect yours. So with that said, we'll move on to the next. I don't want this to turn into a rant, but it seems like it is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and move us on to another clip. Unfortunately, this is going to be another clip. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Okay, so we're going back to BLM. Imagine that. So, of course, by now, if you haven't heard that, BLM has been the cause of death for a child in Atlanta, an 8-year-old child. I don't know what the justice looks like for her or that family right now, but I tell you, they need to not look for it from that Bottoms, Keisha Lance Bottoms. I think she needs to go. But there are so many people there that believe everything that she says. They think that somehow her emotions, you know, means that you're involved. That's an involvement, right? Your emotions are involved. So hang on one second. Sorry about the background noise here.
They say Black Lives Matter. You killed your own. Killed your own this time. Just because of barrier. They killed my baby because she crossed the barrier and made a U-turn. You killed a child. She ain't do nothing to nobody.
They didn't give us time to make a U-turn. They started shooting on my car before we could even make a U-turn. Shooting my tires out. Like, why?
But Black Lives Matter.
My baby was shot in her bed.
Killing your own.
Nobody there to help
You
me.
killed an 8-year-old child.
Nobody.
She ain't did nothing to now one of y'all. She just wanted to get home to see her cousin. That's all she wanted to do. She just wanted to get home. They say Black Lives Matter. You killed your own. Killed your own this time. Just because of barrier. They killed my baby because she crossed the barrier and made a U-turn. You killed a child. She ain't do nothing to nobody.
They didn't give us time to make a U-turn. They started shooting on my car before we could even make a U-turn. Shooting my tires out. Like, why?
But Black Lives Matter.
Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So there you had the parents of the child that was slain in a car in Atlanta by Black Lives Matter. So here again, this is what I'm talking about. And I have yet to hear one thing out of the mayor of Atlanta to say that she does not support the group for what they've done, for their engagement, for whatever their involvement is. How many of these mayors are speaking out against this? Mayors, I haven't heard them speak out against anything. I've heard them sit there. I've seen them in their crocodile tears behind podiums. I've seen them tip their hats to Killer Mike and Ti. This is this particular mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms. I've heard her tip her hat to those people. It's only relevant because they own most of the West Side or half of the West Side in Atlanta. Hang on just one second, guys. Just for a second, I'd like to take you to another story. I just hang on just one second. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I want to take you to a clip from yesterday that I did an entire video on, but I want to take you just to a clip.
reality. Forget statistics. I know what identity politics does. How much so when you...
All right, guys, I'm going to play you a clip from a video that I did yesterday, but I think this is important to those of you out there, which I presume that most people around here, are interested in finding out what's going on and being aware and staying abreast of what's going on out here, because what you don't know can hurt you in 2020. So I'll let this man take it away. I think he made his point very well, and I'm surprised this is not going viral. We'll see what happens, but it's nice to see a stand-up man that rejects culture and puts his family above the fray and above all the noise. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn.
Start to go down this road of the freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and how much social space is allowed for those who don't support in that same space. And that's where I wonder where this is going to go in terms of identity politics. We know what identity politics does. It divides and it polarizes. No matter how you want to look at it, that's just the effect of it, no matter how great the intentions are. And we all know the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So it's an interesting play right here. I don't know how many people really look into the mission statement of Black Lives Matter, but I did. And when you look into it, there's a couple things that jump out to me. And I'm a Black man who's been Black, and my life has mattered since 1974. And this organization was founded in 2013. I'm proud of you. But I've been fighting this fight for me and for others a lot longer. Two things. My family structure is so vital, important to me. Not only the one I grew up in, but the one I'm trying to create right now. Being a father and a husband, that's my mission in life right now. How do I reconcile that, what I just told you, with this mission statement that says, quote, "We dismantle the patriarchal practice. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement." When I know statistics, when I know my reality, forget statistics. I knew this before I even went to Columbia and saw these same statistics that I'm going to read to you right now. That children from single parent homes versus two parent homes. The children from the single parent homes, this is in 1995, I was reading this. 5 times more likely to commit suicide, 6 times more likely to be in poverty, 9 times more likely to drop out of high school, 10 times more likely to abuse chemical substances, 14 times more likely to commit rape, 20 times more likely to end up in prison, and 32 times more likely to run away from home. I knew that. You know why I knew it? Because a lot of my friends didn't have family structures that were nuclear like mine, and they found themselves outside of their dreams and goals and aspirations. So when I see that, or as a mission statement for Black Lives Matter, it makes me scratch my head. When I also see their mission is to eradicate white supremacy. In 2020, white supremacy is the mission. Woo, that's a lot of digging through minutia right there. I am on a show that I'm hosting along with another Black guy who is hosting with me, who replaced another Black guy. And that's just one example of it. So I understand, I respect your space. I respect what you're protesting for. But will you respect others who don't support that same protest?
Really well said. And I'm glad that I'm not on an island here, because I think it's a bad idea too. Number one, certainly the freedom of expression that you talked about. Where are you going to draw the line? Let's never forget that the NBA is a corporation and this is a business. So are they just going to let guys do whatever they want and have whatever they want on their jerseys? If not, then it's not really freedom of expression, is it? You're controlling the message. The second part is that ultimately it's a message. And I think at this point, we're looking for action. We have a thing in writing that we say, show, don't tell. At this point, I understand, and I was part of a protest here in my town. People who don't have access to power and influence, the average citizen gets together and they have their voice heard by protesting. That's not the case with the NBA, and that's not the case with NBA players. They have influence, they have power, they have resources. I would much rather see apprenticeships for minorities and people of color with NBA. Have NBA teams pledge to have apprenticeships and opportunities on both sides, basketball and business, in the organizations. Hire minority-owned businesses to support the NBA and in the bubble right now. They're spending $100 million. That, to me, is ultimately action. At this point, look, I don't have any problem with messages, but to change this, there has to be something more significant than that. We've had protests before, and we're in the same place. You could go back 30 years and we were having protests and nothing has changed. And ultimately, announcing it now and saying that this is what the bubble is going to be a big part of says to all the people out there that were just tuning in to get back to normalcy and to watch basketball.
Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Now, there again, I think this is, we're going to see, I guess, if for whatever happens in the fall, your favorite pastimes, them bringing the sports back into the your entertainment or your leisure time, you know, you're going to be dealing with social justice. I think they even banned, I think, what was it, the Olympics committee, I think they were banning this kind of a thing. So why can't, if a group of nations can get together and say, look, we're not going to tolerate any of this social justice stuff. You come out here, you say you're a gymnast, do your vault, do your dismounts, do your beam routine, and get off the stage. You're here for the swim to represent the U.S. in swimming. Do your laps, do your rotations, and get out of the pool. We do not want to see any demonstrations. We don't want to see any demonstrations. You're here to perform. We want to see you do what you do best. We do not want to see all this political stuff. So it's getting a little bit old. It's like, do we not have any, have we really lost this much control of this country? Once again, I'd like to take an opportunity to thank our loyal supporters and patrons. Thank you guys so much. If you're looking for great content creators, there's Derek C. Williams, Killer Will Channels, The Angel Munez Variety Show, Definition of Anarchy, Sandy K, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, and Gary L. Youngkeist Jr. And thank you so much to Cold War Jesus for all that you do and all of your support on the channel. Thank you guys so much. So we're going to move on to another story. But here again, you know, BLM just seems to be wreaking havoc on this country. It's just, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but how have they gained, how did they gain so much? It seems like they've already picked up some power. You know, we may not, what do you want to call it? I think, what was it, the founder of that group? She said it was her goal. It's her goal to gain some political power. Well, I think they've already done it. I think they've got at least, I think roughly at least 100 million. They've secured $100 million in funding. So how is a group able to, how is it that this is allowed to happen? How is this legal is what I don't quite understand. They have admitted on national TV that if their demands are not met, that they are going to take this country under. How does that work? I mean, anyone with legal expertise out there, it's welcome. You're welcome to share that here. Thank you guys so much for coming in. Let's see. I just want to give a couple of shout outs here, read a couple of comments. Soros and the globalists. And see, the thing about Soros, from what I understand, he was eliminated in his own country. So how did he rise to such influence here in the States? I mean, these people are known. They're known. They have a background. They have a track record. I mean, I just don't. I mean, and then of course, but we have globalists here. We have, and that's going to bring me to my next. We'll go ahead and segue into the next segment of this, because I'm going to talk about the behind the campaigns, and when I say campaigns, I'm being just as disingenuous as the language, as the word that I used. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to play a video for you, and then I'm going to expound on a specific group, and I'm going to give you I'll give you some known names that you'll recognize some names very quickly that I'm going to add to the list. So on this next segment, I'm going to share with you a interview or some footage from the vetted source, the TNA, and who's behind the riots. And it's also going to expose some other things. So in this latest issue, the TNA, Alex Newman and Dr. Duke Pesta break down who the major players are behind the riots. Okay, if you follow the money, it'll lead you right to the racist billionaires such as the Rockefellers and George Soros. This might not make sense on the surface, which is why there is some other communication to substantiate this whole argument. So thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Hope everybody's doing well out there. So I'm going to bring you that coverage right now. Thank you guys. If you're just now coming in, if you'll hit that like button. Thank you so much, Derek C. Williams, for sharing it out. I really appreciate that. Thank you for all that you do, your support, supporting the Channelytics. I mean, I can't say enough. All right, so we'll go ahead and let's get into that video a little bit, and then I'm going to offer my own. I'm going to bring my own research to the table on it. Once again, thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn.
I'm Dr. Duke with the New American, and joined today by our international correspondent, Alex Newman. Alex,
thanks for your time.
Thanks so much for having me, Duke. Great to be with you.
Well, in the week after the 4th of July, the 6th of July to be precise, a new edition of the New American magazine is released, and you and I both have articles in that magazine. So let us talk about your cover story and my secondary story. Let's talk about your story, which is what is really going on? Who is really behind the rioting in the American public sphere right now? Who are the players who are making this happen?
Yeah, and that's really the main focus of my story. And so what I do is I zero in on the main organizations on the ground that are fomenting the unrest, that are stirring up riots and looting and violence, and then also the organizations and the individuals who are funding that. And so we focus in particular on three organizations on the ground primarily, and we talk about some of the others involved too. But you have Antifa, which President Trump has declared a terrorist organization. You have Black Lives Matter, which is a Marxist organization, and you don't have to dig very deep to find that. You can just go to their website; they'll probably tell you. In fact, they say it in interviews, right? And then the last one is called the Sunrise Movement, which is a grassroots organization supposedly of young people. They're out there recruiting children in government schools to come serve as useful, brainwashed idiots, to kind of serve as a battering ram in the breaking down of our civilization. And then, beyond that, we look at some of the information we have on them. For example, the Sunrise Movements, they were planning these riots in Minnesota long before George Floyd was killed. In fact, they were doing webinars, they were plotting this defund the police movement. One of their big agenda items is the Green New Deal. So we expose all that. And then we get into where is the money coming from, and it's not surprising. It's also not hard to figure out. The documents, the data is all out there. It is racist billionaires, almost without exception, right? The largest funder of the Sunrise Movement, for example, is the Rockefeller Family Foundation. Now, the Rockefellers, now interesting, they're funding anti-racist protests. They were some of the biggest financiers of racism throughout the 20th century. They were funding Nazi racial pseudoscience quackery. They were funding Joseph Mengele before he started his experiments on children in Auschwitz. They were funding eugenics. They were funding all this kind of racial pseudoscience, claiming that whites were superior. So the idea that they now suddenly grew a conscience and now they're trying to fight racism is ludicrous. And also, they made all their money in oil, which is funny that they're funding the Sunrise Movement, which one of their big claims to fame is fighting for the Green New Deal and to transform the economy to stop fossil fuels. Then you have Soros, obviously funding the Black Lives Matter movement, and you have this weird convergence of communist groups and super capitalists funding them. And it doesn't make sense on the surface. So what we do in the article is explain to you this has been going on for a long time. It's not new, and there are very specific objectives that they're pursuing, Duke.
So this is a complicated subject, and I know that probably the average TNA reader is up to speed on some of these issues, but not maybe the general reader. So the Black Lives Matter, if you go to their own website, I mean, this is not complicated. They're talking about breaking apart the nuclear family. They want to unmake gender norms. They want to get rid of male and female. They are openly and avowedly Marxist. They make it very clear that what they want to do is bring down Trump, they say. They want to replace the government in America with a socialist Marxist government. So that's obvious, and you can find that pretty easily. Antifa, I think, is all of those things without even pretending to be something else, right? I mean, we've already figured out that Antifa is not anti-fascist, that they are using the tools of fascism to do exactly what Black Lives Matter wants to do. No, neither of those things are surprising, although it surprises me that Antifa, the Trump administration, took some heat for branding them a terrorist organization, but they are. But given the same objective and aims of Black Lives Matter, almost the same profile, how do you make one a terrorist organization and not the other one?
That's a very good question, and my guess is politics was probably involved more than anything. But I really do think it's time for law enforcement, for prosecutors, for state attorneys general to start investigating these things. What we have here is very clearly subversion. This is an effort to overthrow our system of government and replace it with a totalitarian new system of government. And to be clear, there are ways to change the system. If people are unhappy with the system, we have legal, lawful means of doing so. It includes voting. It includes constitutional amendments. It includes rewriting the Constitution if that's what people want to do. We have an Article 5 process. I think it's a terrible idea, but it is possible. When you get into the realm of trying to violently overthrow the system, using violence and destruction of property and killing to try to advance your political objectives, there's a very specific name for that. It's called terrorism. It's called subversion. It's called revolution. And these people need to be prosecuted, but they have friends in high places. And so what we're seeing here, actually, Duke, is the use of a very old communist strategy. It actually helped enslave multiple nations. It was pioneered in Czechoslovakia, which managed to fall under communist slavery without a shot being fired. Very similar thing to what we're seeing now. So you have the pressure from below, which is the rioters, the looters, the protesters, funded by Soros, funded by Rockefeller, funded by the Ford Foundation, and all these mega billionaire foundations and individuals. And then you have the pressure from above. So you have actual communists and Marxists within the UN saying, "Oh, look at the protesters. We need fundamental reform of America. We need to address the root causes of socioeconomic inequality." Fancy ways of saying you need communism in America. Then you have the Democrats in Congress, many of them, taking a knee and putting individuals.
This is not something that's just emanated out of the last couple of years. And it even precedes Trump by decades, what they've been trying to do. But I just start with the election of Donald Trump. This coup, and I think you're right for calling it a coup, it is treason. It is an attempt to overthrow a sitting government. Even the you had this nothing burger Russian collusion story. You had all of the fake racial outrage, things that Trump never said. There's good people on both sides. It has been an insurrection carried out and abetted by the media, the mainstream media, to unmake this president from the moment he was elected. Never once have the Democrats accepted that this was a legitimate election or that he was a legitimate president. And more importantly, that those of us who reject the progressive new wave, that we have the right to be represented by politicians who do not see things the way they do.
That's exactly right, Duke. That's exactly right. And so this is, to be clear, this is illegal. This is unlawful. This is criminal. This is a national security threat. And to build on all of that, just very, very recently, we released an interview with Josiah Cruz. She's a Venezuelan woman who's running for Congress in Atlanta, who has probably one of the most in-depth understandings of what's going on in Latin America and how that translates into America. And what she explained, and we actually show the proof, the videos of these people talking about these things. There's a network of Latin American communist regimes, socialist dictatorships, including the Venezuelans, the Bolivians, the Cubans, the Nicaraguans, and on and on and on, who are actually orchestrating a war on America. They infiltrated their agents into the United States, and they're bragging about this in public, right? It's amazing that our media doesn't pick up on this. Oh, wait, no, it's not. But you would think our intelligence agencies, our military would at least be doing something about this. Total silence. And so what we're seeing here is an orchestrated, very well planned, coordinated effort. It's a war on the United States. It's designed to completely and utterly annihilate our system of government, our free political institutions. And as long as we don't understand that we're in a war, as long as you have a big part of the population running around thinking it's about racial justice or police brutality or something like that, we are going to be defeated in a way that I think is going to be absolutely catastrophic. So we need to be clear here. This is a war against us, against the United States, against our freedom. This is not about police. And the communists themselves say this. The issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. And we're seeing that now. It's not about George Floyd. It's not about police brutality. It's not about if it was about Black Lives Matter, they'd be protesting at Planned Parenthood. Slaughtering thousands of unborn Black babies every day, founded by a eugenicist who wanted to disappear Black people from the gene pool. It's not about Black lives. It's about overthrowing our system and reducing us to serfdom, and we've got to treat it as such.
Pay attention. The revolutionaries went from protesting police to protesting statues of Confederate soldiers in 2 weeks. Confederate soldiers to protesting the statues of our founding fathers, and even now abolitionists, to now opposing literally the 4th of July, which is being condemned even as we speak, the Independence Day, and the American flag, and Mount Rushmore. So this isn't going to stop anytime soon. It's going to get a lot worse. Alex, thanks for your time today.
I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Thank you guys so much for coming in, and thank you for joining me. Thank you guys for those of you that have just come in. Shout out to Alien Believers. If you guys could hit the like bell or the unlike bell or share, whatever speaks to you at this time of your day. Shout out to the Rapper 10,000, Chrysler Imperial H, Derek C. Williams. Thank you so much for all that you do. Shout out to everybody. Spirit of Liberty, 1775. And so I just want to expound a little bit on a group that he mentioned. And I've done a story on this before. So I'm just going to take you back just a little bit, if you don't mind. Now, he mentioned one organization. Now, I think everybody's pretty vastly familiar with Antifa and BLM, but the Sunrise Movement. So we've got from the shadows, I'm getting into the shadows on these campaigns, if you will. Now, 2020 campaign, you know, they're going full, all signs go, they're going full in for the 2020 campaigns. Okay. Now that also includes new recruitment for potential Democrat candidates. So for those of you that are living in some of these Eastern Seaboard cities, major cities, whether it's New York, I think the liberals have infected that entire, the indoctrination is strong down the coast, pretty far down, all the way into the Virginias and even into the Carolinas. So in fact, the Sunrise Movement actually gave us AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Ayanna Pressley in 2018. And that's also where the pitch of the Green New Deal came from. So the Green New Deal was at the center of the Sunrise Movement, but they basically recruited and funded AOC and the other three. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're not behind the scenes, because there again, you know, you just heard Alex say that they knew very well in advance of this whole George Floyd thing about the riots, and of course they've had their people even out in Seattle saying, you know, that they would continue to hold those streets or occupy those streets. It's like it's like the mafia. You know, this organization, these women are well connected, and they are well funded to do what they're doing, to carry out their agenda. So the Sunrise Movement is what you're dealing with, and they're also seeking to nominate and fund more radical Democrats to go in and push the Green New Deal. So according to what was something that was published earlier this year in the TNA, that the head of the Sunrise said that 2020 was, quote, their last opportunity to elect climate leaders that can immediately enact bold transformational action over the course of the next decade to save our planet, end quote. Okay, so there were others. If you guys are familiar with, I'm not sure if you're in the area, they've got 3 people in mind that they were looking to work with or to promote the candidates: Robert Emmons Jr. of the 1st Congressional District, Maureen Newman of the 3rd District, Morgan Harper of Ohio in the 3rd District. And these people are seeking to unseat incumbent Democrats. So if you think these 4 women that are already in Congress are giving you pause, I do believe that these people that they are promoting from behind the scenes are going to be even more radical and even more progressive. So not to mention in Texas, for those of you that are in Texas, Mike Siegel, that's the 10th district that he's running against a Republican in a purple district. Now, you guys do understand that Texas, if we don't hold Texas, then this is going to be we're going to be a one-party nation. And one step closer to totalitarianism. So it's a little background there. So many of these people, so for instance, some of these affiliates, you know, they are community. You have so many community organizers. You've got these people are being counseled by the likes of Bill Ayers. They are all about organizing and showing up. That is their strength. And they go, you notice they go in waves. You notice these agendas. You notice that some of these things that you thought, I haven't heard about this in a while. They go on, they repeat these things in waves. When you think they're gone, they're not. It's an underground fire of organizers and community agitators. And they're laced throughout. And many of these people are rich elite, or some people might even call them hippies. These rich hippies are dictating what Black people should be offended by, and how sinful America is, and how much they hate America, and how much they want to dismantle the place for their own purposes. Go out and destroy your community. And by the way, we'll give you a statue downtown to commemorate your police brutality stories. It's despicable. It's despicable what's happening. And I'm not using the word wake up because I don't think it's a matter of waking up. I don't think it's a matter of waking up at this point. There is a scene from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom that I think is much more appropriate. Let's see, who do I have here? The rapper 10,000 said, and nobody at MSM knows about this. Well, I mean, of course they do. I mean, they're not going to talk about this. They're too busy gaslighting and making. I think somehow they found a way. I think they're trying to tie all the deaths. They're trying to tie all the deaths of these children to Trump. If you can imagine that. If you can imagine that. That's what they're in the business of doing. See, and the rapper says my city is the worst. Chrysler says all the people that are funding this nonsense should be arrested and prosecuted under the RICO Act. I'd vote for it. Chrysler, right now. Where do I sign? Alien Believers says the lies go so far up. The whole nation is under control of a few 1%, and it's been that way since 1930 sometimes. Unfortunately, I think you're right, Alien Believers. This is, they call it the swamp. I think it's worse than that. I think the swamp even, at some point you recognize most of what's in the swamp, right? You can track. Need some contact tracers for these swamp creatures, right? How about contact tracing for the Congress members? What about that? How about that? Set up some mobile units. See, the rapper says, here in Chicago, 3 kids were murdered as young as 1-year-old in a drive-by. No protest. 21 people were killed in the riots, but 700 died by BLM's hands. Yeah, because you see what I'm saying? It's almost like it's like the foot soldiers of the Democrats are doing more damage in the Black community than anybody. They've done more damage in the last month or so, last few months, and dare I say a year. Because, they're basically, I think they're going to start attacking anybody that resists, it's like gang members. You can't even go to church. And the pandemic and all of this stuff, it's way too much. There's way too much. And it's very disheartening that we don't hear anything from anybody. We don't see enough people doing. We're all under the control of these governors, these impotent governors, and these weak mayors. I just don't think this is. I don't think it's going to be a sustainable no matter what happens. I mean, where are we going to end up? Where are we going to end up when it's all said and done? Some of the damage and some of the precedents that has been set already, it's irreparable. Because even in history and people that grew up during this time, they're going to remember these things, and they're going to remember the kind of leadership that we had. But why won't people do their homework going forward? Instead of sitting in front of a TV and waiting for MSM or some liberal to tell them how to feel or how to think about things. Let's see. Rapper, why are they so blind to see the big picture? Chrysler Imperial says it's getting to the point with this Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with Black lives. Like you said, they're going to go after anybody who resists their agenda. Yes. I mean, can you imagine going into it's almost like it's a revolution. We're dealing with some kind of homegrown revolution. And we're being attacked. We're being attacked on our own soil. So shout out to everybody in the stream. Also, I would like to take an opportunity to thank everyone. Loyal patrons, loyal subscribers. Take a look at these channels. Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Angel Munez Variety Show, The Definition of Anarchy, Sandy K, Chrysler Imperial H, Gary L. Youngkeast, and Sandy K. And thanks so much to Cold War Jesus for your support. Thank you guys very much for all that you do. And thank you so much to all of the subscribers. You guys, please keep an eye out on your community tab. I know I have fallen just a bit behind on some of the updates, but I'm going to get to it. I really believe that we can do more than just share here. We have an opportunity to do some solution, to come up with engagement. And of course, I would like to offer an extension, something to go another step on that. Let's take it a step further and offer something else that's going to be exclusively just to the people here on Black Spring with Autumn. So I appreciate you guys, and there will be more to come. So also check out the Patreon community tab. Some projects that I'm working on between both of the platforms, but I think I'm under the impression that I have more liberties on the Patreon at times, but we'll see. We'll definitely see. We have also, make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. If you're just now coming in, if you could hit that like button or unlike button, that'll help out with the channelytics. Make sure you're still subscribed, and I will do you the same. I will do you the same courtesy when I come over to your channel, because I do believe that they have eliminated quite a few. They've done something with the algorithms that nobody subscribed in some cases. So thanks so much. I'm going to move us on to the next story. Thanks so much for your flexibility of coming in at this earlier time. I had something that came up, so that's the only time I'll deviate from the Monday, Tuesday schedule, but it's my plan Monday, Tuesday to stay at the 10 o'clock PST, and that would be the EST 12 o'clock. And that's 1 o'clock on EST, and then 12 o'clock on Central Standard Time. So that's why I encourage you guys also to stay up on the actual community tab. So you guys got kids? Anybody that has kids here?
Oh shit! Oh shit! Let me get out! No, fuck that! And oh shit! Oh yeah! Oh! Oh shit! Oh fuck this shit! Oh! Oh shit! Oh shit! Let me get out! No, fuck that!
Join 10 TV and the James every
Take a look at this. It was taken in the middle of the day on the 4th of July. It shows what appears to be a fight turned violent and potentially dangerous for shoppers. It happened outside the Kroger on Soldano Boulevard near the intersection of North Wilson Road and West Broad Street, as you can see on this map. Now, 10 TV's Stephanie Stanovich talked with the man who took the video and Columbus police, and we really do want to warn you, some of what you're about to see is disturbing.
Columbus police say this video was taken on Saturday, July 4th outside of Kroger on Saldano Boulevard. The gentleman who took the video wants to remain anonymous. He says he was waiting in the car while his family was shopping inside.
When I started seeing or hearing like shouting.
He then heard someone yell, "They're fighting."
It was just the two girls that were fighting.
He says one of the women got in her car.
Said I thought it was over, right? She was gonna go home, like, or everybody's gonna go their separate ways. But she circles back around, still like arguing with the other girl.
Then more people got involved. He says he didn't know any of them.
The other two, they were like taking the car, like smacking on the window for the other girl to come back out.
And that's when things escalated. A warning, this video is hard to watch. One of the drivers slammed into a man in the parking lot. Sergeant Joe Albert with the Columbus Division of Police say officers responded right away, and they are reviewing the videos that have since gone viral online.
We have to get on scene as quick as we can and preserve the scene, and then also speak with as many witnesses that we can that were willing to come forward and talk to us. That goes for any crime, a shooting, anything like that.
Sergeant Albert says at this time they aren't able to release any more information. He says when it comes to incidents like this and the videos that are circulating, there's many parts to the investigation. Reporting in Columbus, Stephanie Stanovich, 10 TV News.
One person was taken to Grant Medical Center and should be okay. The assault squad detectives are handling this investigation now. As far as charges being filed, police say that is all part of their investigation, and we will certainly keep you posted on